I'll give you the company if you answer this question. The millionaires made fun of the poor secretary, but they had no idea who she really was. Before we start, leave a comment indicating which city you're watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. I had been invisible for so long I almost started believing I belonged in the shadows. My name is Jasmine Bennett. Assistant secretary. Room filler. Coffee girl. Ghost. And yet, I held in my mind 2 master's degrees, a PhD nearly finished, and 3 years of experience building sovereign investment models at the Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. But none of that mattered when people looked at me. Not in America. Not in corporate boardrooms like this one. I stood quietly against the wall of the Westwood Hotel's presidential suite, dressed in my crisp white blouse and gray slacks, holding a silver tray with a steaming carafe and 3 mismatched mugs. I knew my place, or so they thought. Across the room, a billionaire CEO, James Wilson, sat stiffly at a conference table, his face taut with tension. On the other side, Sheikh Khaled Al Hassan, head of one of the world's largest sovereign wealth funds, was growing visibly agitated. The translators were lost, fumbling. The deal was spiraling into disaster. 3 months of preparation. $5 billion on the table. An entire international development project hanging in the balance, and it was all collapsing over a single clause, lost in mistranslation. Then the Sheikh switched to Arabic. Fast. Too fast. The translators froze. I saw the panic in their eyes, the fear in Wilson's. And that's when I knew. This was my moment. My decision. Speak or disappear forever. I set the coffee tray down slowly and stepped forward. My heart pounded against my ribs like a war drum. I opened my mouth and, in perfect modern standard Arabic, I said, "Your Highness Sheikh Khaled, if I may. I believe I understand the root of the misunderstanding." Silence. The kind that slices the air. Every eye turned to me. They looked at me like I'd grown wings. Or horns. The Sheikh's eyebrows lifted. James Wilson's jaw dropped. Richard Turner, the executive VP who had never once said, "Good morning," to me, looked like someone had slapped him. I didn't blink. This clause, I continued in Arabic, was translated in a way that implies absolute voting authority if performance benchmarks are missed. But in the original English, it only refers to voting preference. There is a material difference. One implies monopoly. The other partnership. The Sheikh nodded slowly. He responded in Arabic, deliberately testing me. I answered fluently. His expression shifted, from suspicion, to surprise, to respect. Meanwhile, Turner hissed, "Get back to your desk. This isn't your place." Wilson held up a hand. "No. Let her speak." So I spoke. I explained section 4. 3, then 6. 2, then 9. 4, each clause, each nuance, each cultural and legal implication. I wasn't just fluent, I was fluent in their financial dialect, in their cultural language. By the time I finished, the Sheikh looked at Wilson and said, "She's correct. This changes everything." That was the moment everything changed for me, too. But it wasn't a miracle. It wasn't luck. It was 10 years of being overlooked, underpaid, and underestimated. It was grief and survival and burning ambition hidden behind modest clothes and quiet eyes. And it was just the beginning. They didn't clap. They didn't cheer. But they looked at me differently, and that was louder than any applause I'd ever heard. The Sheikh's handshake lingered, firm and respectful. "I look forward to seeing you at the next stage of negotiations, Ms. Bennett," he said with a nod. Then he left the room, trailed by his entourage, his signature pen still untouched. The deal was back on. Because of me. But silence fell like a hammer when the doors clicked shut. James Wilson stared at me. "You speak Arabic?" he finally asked, as if I'd just performed magic. I have a background in Middle Eastern diplomacy, I said evenly. I left out the part where I spent 6 years translating investment reports for international banks while finishing my thesis at night. That didn't matter now. Or maybe it did, but not in the way I wanted. Turner was the first to move. He laughed, sharp, dismissive, brittle. You could have warned us, Jasmine. Warned you? You never asked. Wilson rubbed his temple. So, what else haven't you told us? I have a master's in international economics from Georgetown. And another from the Sorbonne. I also worked with the IMF as a consultant for a year. Turner's smirk vanished. Why are you here? He asked, genuinely confused. I applied for the associate role 2 years ago, I said calmly. I was told I was overqualified and not the right fit. So I took what I could get. No one said a word. By that afternoon, word had spread. Fast. Like whispers carried by wine through the upper floors of the company. She speaks 5 languages. She corrected a Sheikh in real time. Turner tried to shut her down. Wilson stopped him. Wait, Jasmine? The one from the front desk? Yes. That Jasmine. The one who ordered your lunch. Who printed your emails. Who reminded you your daughter's recital was at 6 p.m. Now, they looked at me with curiosity. Not kindness, yet. But curiosity was a start. I returned to my desk, like always. My corner of the 27th floor. The cheap chair. The scratched monitor. And I waited. Because I knew something was coming. It didn't take long. At 5:42 p.m., I got an internal invite. From James Wilson T.O., Jasmine Bennett subject, confidential. See me now. I walked into his office 15 minutes later, calm but alert. He stood by the window, overlooking Manhattan, swirling a glass of ginger ale like it was aged scotch. You saved the biggest deal of the quarter today, he said. I didn't do it for praise. He turned. I know. There was a long pause. You've been hiding in plain sight, he said. Why? I wasn't hiding. I was surviving. That hit him. He nodded slowly and gestured to a chair. I want to know everything. So I told him. The immigrant mother who raised me on minimum wage. The scholarship that almost slipped away. The interviews where they smiled, then ignored me. The countless ways I was made to feel too much and not enough at the same time. So I stopped waiting for permission. I worked. I learned. I watched. And I waited. James leaned back, his gaze unreadable. Jasmine, how would you feel about joining the negotiation team as a cultural and legal liaison? Temporary? For now. I smiled. I'll take it. But just so we're clear, this won't be the last table I sit at. His lips twitched. Not a smile. Not quite. But almost. I don't doubt that, he said. That night, I walked home differently. Not lighter, heavier, if anything. Because once the door opens, it never closes the same way again. And when you've spent your life invisible, the first spotlight burns. It doesn't warm. It exposes. But I wasn't afraid. They'd seen me now. And I wasn't going back to the corner. By Monday morning, I was in a new suit, seated 2 doors down from James Wilson's corner office. My name was still on the assistant directory, but the plaque on my new desk now read. Jasmine Bennett International Liaison, Executive Strategy Division. The look started the moment I walked in. Curious. Cautious. Calculating. Turner didn't even greet me. Just brushed past me like I'd tracked mud into the boardroom. But that was fine. I wasn't here to win their approval. I was here to make sure no one like me ever had to beg to be seen again. The first real test came sooner than I expected. Wednesday's meeting, a follow-up call with Khaled's team. This time, two French-speaking representatives from Dakar were joining, investors new to the table, old friends of the Sheikh. It was supposed to be straightforward. It wasn't. Midway through the call, the translation app the firm used glitched. Two dialects clashed. A sentence meant to express strategic flexibility was rendered in French as structural weakness. The table went tense. One of the representatives, a woman named Nadine Diouf, raised an eyebrow and said in crisp Wolof-accented French, "We do not invest in weakness. Especially not from those who insult our intelligence." Turner fumbled. What did she say? "I'll handle it," I said, stepping forward. I spoke directly to Nadine in fluent French. "Madame Diouf, forgive the translation. What we intended to say was, your team's flexibility has been key to the entire negotiation. The structure is solid, but your insight is what's helping it move forward." She paused. Then she smiled. "Enfin, une femme qui comprend," she said. Finally, a woman who understands. When the meeting ended, I noticed Turner watching me. Not with respect. With worry. He knew his grip was slipping. And I knew exactly what I represented now, not a moment, but a shift. By Friday, whispers were circulating again. Who is she connected to? Did she lie on her resume? Was this some kind of DI stunt? It wasn't just the men. It was the women too, ones who had long since decided there was only room for one of us at the top. And I wasn't it. But I didn't respond to the whispers. I responded with precision, research, clarity, fluency, and facts. Every document I revised improved negotiations. Every call I translated moved us closer to closing. Every late night I worked was another wall I kicked down. Wilson noticed. He called me in after a late Friday debrief. "The board wants you on the Tokyo presentation next month." Even after Turner's complaints? He gave a dry smile. "Especially after Turner's complaints." I nodded. "Just say the word." He leaned forward. "You sure you're ready for this kind of attention?" I looked him straight in the eye. I wasn't built for silence. Still, the storm came sooner than I expected. Sunday morning, an anonymous tip reached HR, "Check Jasmine Bennett's file. She falsified credentials. She's a fraud." By noon, I was pulled into a private room with legal and HR. No greeting. No explanation. Just suspicion. They slid a document across the table. A forged copy of my Georgetown diploma, with the wrong date and seal. "We've received concerns," the head of legal said, not meeting my eyes. "Until this is verified, your access is suspended." I sat there for a second, stunned. Then I pulled out my phone and opened my cloud storage. I tapped on a folder labeled "Everything they'll ask when they think you don't belong." Georgetown. Sorbonne. IMF contracts. Thesis. Flight logs from the years they'd said I was just temping. I slid the phone across the table. "Next time," I said quietly, "verify the source before you assume the lie is mine." The next morning, an internal memo cleared me of all accusations. But I didn't feel relieved. I felt tired. Because this is what it meant to be me, always prepared, always perfect, always on edge, just to prove I deserved the seat I already earned. But I wasn't backing down. If anything, I was just getting started. It had been 2 weeks since the forged diploma incident, and though I was officially cleared, something shifted in the air. Turner no longer looked me in the eye. Others did, but only to measure me. And Wilson? He doubled my workload. Not as punishment, but as preparation. He saw what was coming. So did I. The Tokyo deal. Bennett and Company had been chasing a major renewable energy partnership in Japan for over a year. The final negotiations were scheduled for the following Monday in Tokyo. 4 people would attend: Wilson, Turner, a compliance officer, and me. Turner wasn't happy. "She's not trained in Japanese business culture," he said bluntly during a prep meeting. She has a degree in international diplomacy, Wilson shot back. Turner shrugged. Books don't teach nuance. I smiled. Neither does arrogance. That earned me a sharp glare. I didn't flinch. I had spent 3 months working in Tokyo during my postgrad years. I spoke conversational Japanese. I studied keiretsu structures and the customs of nemawashi, the informal groundwork that makes or breaks deals. What Turner didn't realize was that while he played chess with titles, I played Go with patterns. And in Japan, patterns mattered more than posturing. We landed in Tokyo on a Sunday afternoon. By Monday morning, I was dressed in navy, not black, because in Japanese culture, black at formal meetings echoes mourning. No one told me that. I just knew. The first few hours of negotiation went smoothly. Formal. Measured. Respectful. Until Turner tried to lighten the mood. He made a joke about the size of the Japanese partners' team, something about too many cooks in the kitchen. The laughter in the room died. Subtly, but completely. Mr. Saito, the head negotiator, responded with a flat smile. We value consensus. Perhaps that's different from your way. It was a quiet rebuke. Turner didn't even catch it. But I did. Over lunch, I pulled Wilson aside. They're about to withdraw, I said. Turner insulted their structure. They see it as disrespect. He sighed. What do you suggest? Let me lead the next session. Alone. He blinked. Alone? I can fix this. But only if they don't see it as an American power play. Wilson paused, measuring something behind my eyes. Then he nodded. Do it. At 3 p.m. I returned to the conference room. Alone. I bowed low. Thank you for allowing me to speak directly. Mr. Saito nodded, his expression neutral. You understand why our trust is cautious. I do, I said in Japanese. Their eyebrows rose. I continued. Your team is not too large. It is thorough. It reflects integrity. In my culture, we often mistake speed for progress. But I believe progress comes from understanding. That is why I came. For a long moment, they said nothing. Then Mr. Saito said softly, Nemawashi o rikai shitemasu ni. You understand how to prepare the roots before planting the tree. I bowed again. Hi. We spent the next 2 hours reworking the terms, not as competitors but as collaborators. The final agreement was drafted that night. Turner never got to speak again in that room. The deal was sealed on Tuesday morning. Signed. Approved. Publicized. By the time our plane landed back in New York, headlines were already circulating. Rising star saves Tokyo deal, Bennett and Company's unexpected secret weapon. I didn't care about the headlines. What mattered was the message. That woman in the corner? She wasn't in the corner anymore. But just as I started to breathe, another message came through. An anonymous envelope left on my desk. Inside was a note, stay in your lane, Jasmine. Or next time, it won't be a forged degree. No name. No return address. Just a threat. But it was already too late. I had built my own lane, and I wasn't about to leave it for anyone. The Tokyo deal elevated my name across the company. I was no longer the assistant secretary. I was now the woman who saved the Sheikh's deal and the one who salvaged Tokyo. HR quietly adjusted my title to executive cultural strategist, and I was given my own office, glass walls, view of Midtown, even a nameplate that gleamed like something final. But I knew better. Glass can look like power, but it also makes you a target. The warning note didn't leave my thoughts. I ran the handwriting through an AI filter, checked surveillance logs, asked discreet questions. Nothing. Whoever wrote it knew what they were doing. Turner? Maybe. Someone higher? Possibly. Someone scared? Definitely. But I kept moving. Because the next battle wasn't a mystery, it was on the calendar. The Geneva Conference. A high-stakes, multinational negotiation involving 6 countries, climate policy, carbon credits, and nearly $30 billion in cooperative energy funds. Each country had its own interests, its own cultural protocols, and its own list of acceptable negotiators. And one thing was already clear, no one expected someone like me at that table. During the pre-conference meeting, Turner finally broke his silence. "I'm concerned about appearances," he said coolly. "This delegation needs experienced voices who understand the stakes." James Wilson raised an eyebrow. "Jasmine's more qualified than half this team. She's young. She's unproven on a global level. She just closed Japan." Turner looked directly at me. "This is Geneva, not Tokyo. You need more than language and a good pitch." I leaned forward. "I'm not here for a pitch. I'm here to represent the company and the future we keep pretending we care about." That landed harder than I expected. Wilson smirked. Turner said nothing. When we arrived in Geneva, the tone was different. Stiffer. More political. I watched as men who had never stepped foot in a wind farm negotiated millions in solar subsidies. I saw women from developing nations repeatedly cut off mid-sentence. I saw polished smiles and sharp backroom sabotage. But I also saw opportunity. On day 2, a major impasse froze the talks. The Brazilian delegation believed the energy policy wording implied the U.S. group had veto power on shared carbon funds. It wasn't the first time that clause created tension. I reread the section. I saw the real issue, a legal interpretation error based on how the clause was translated into Portuguese. I approached our general counsel. "I know what's wrong," I said. "The Portuguese version uses the word controller, which implies total control. But the original English draft only meant oversight." He waved me off. "Let the interpreters handle it. They already did. That's the problem." He shrugged. "We're not changing it for one country. Brazil represents 12 others in the Latin coalition." That got his attention. I didn't wait for permission. I walked straight to the Brazilian lead negotiator, Ms. Alves, and switched to fluent Portuguese. "We're not trying to control. That word was a mistake. I'll personally submit a revision that uses supervisão técnica instead." Her eyes narrowed. "You speak Portuguese? Enough to see when someone's trying to manipulate you." That night, Brazil agreed to rejoin the talks. Quietly. No press release. Just progress. I got no public credit. But Ms. Alves nodded at me as she left the conference hall. And that was more than enough. Back in New York, Wilson called me in again. "Turner's retiring," he said suddenly. I blinked. "Voluntarily?" Wilson gave a half-smile. "Let's say, encouraged." I tried to hide my relief. Then he leaned forward. "I want you to take his place. Vice President of Global Strategy." My throat caught. "That's a big leap." He nodded. "It is. You've earned it." When I walked into my new office, 3 times larger, floor-to-ceiling views, I thought I'd feel powerful. Instead, I felt ready. But the moment I opened the desk drawer, I found something else. A note. Typed this time. No handwriting to trace. Just 4 words: "You're not done yet." And I knew they were right. Because winning the seat was just the beginning. Now I had to protect it. Being named Vice President of Global Strategy didn't come with applause. It came with quiet resistance. The emails copied everyone but me. The closed-door meetings I was left out of. The analysts who now avoided eye contact like it was contagious. Not one congratulatory handshake from the senior partners. Not one. Except Wilson. "Stay sharp," he told me during our elevator ride to the 48th floor. They're waiting for you to slip. I didn't intend to. The real test came faster than expected. The Cairo Development Consortium, a rare joint venture between American, Egyptian, and German interests to build one of the largest renewable tech corridors in northern Africa. A $22 billion contract. 3 languages. 5 nations. One woman, me, tasked with threading it all together. On the surface, I was ready. But beneath that, I'd never felt more alone. Day 1 of negotiations. Cairo. I sat beside Wilson, flanked by a German trade envoy and a sharp-eyed Egyptian minister named Ghada Sharif. Everyone at the table was at least 10 years older, all men except for me and Sharif. And from the first minute, I saw it. They spoke around me, not to me. They re-explained my own points. They mistook my silence for uncertainty, never for calculation. But I listened. Because influence isn't always in the first words. It's in the last. At the heart of the conflict was a clause buried in the German draft contract, an innocuous-looking line about long-term asset retention. Sharif believed it implied foreign ownership of Egyptian solar farms for 25+ years. The Germans insisted it simply protected investment. Neither side would budge. The deal teetered. And Wilson? For the first time, he looked uncertain. So I asked for the floor. I stood. Not spoke, stood. That alone got the room's attention. I've read the original German draft, the English summary, and the Egyptian legal objections, I said calmly. In all 3 versions, the problem isn't the clause, it's the assumption behind it. Germany wants guarantees. Egypt wants sovereignty. You're both right. But you're negotiating terms without understanding fears. The room hushed. Sharif tilted her head. Go on. I continued in German. If you clarify that assets will be co-managed through Egyptian majority trusts after 10 years, it removes the appearance of colonization without risking ROI. Then in Arabic, and if Egypt allows a dual oversight board with investor transparency, it satisfies Germany's need for protection. Dead silence. Then Sharif nodded slowly. So she understands us better than our own translators, she said. The German envoy laughed softly. Better than our lawyers. The deal was saved. That night, in my hotel room, I finally let the adrenaline drain. I thought about my mother, who used to stay up nights ironing donated clothes so I'd feel like someone important at school. I thought about the professors who told me I was too intense for diplomacy. And I thought about every name they never bothered to learn in my first job. But now? Now they knew mine. Back in New York, something changed. The press began to notice. An op-ed called me the quiet force behind America's new diplomatic era. A viral post on LinkedIn called me the face of real representation. And the whispers returned. But this time, they weren't just inside the company. A group of women, young assistants, interns, even cafeteria workers, started leaving post-it notes outside my office. Thank you for making us visible. I saw you speak. I cried. I thought I had to quit. Now I want to fight. And then, something I never expected. A call from the White House. They wanted me to brief the State Department on the Cairo framework. They said it was groundbreaking. I said I'd come. Because it was no longer about me. It was about building something bigger than one seat. It was about designing the whole table. The invitation to the White House came folded in quiet respect. Your model for the Cairo Accord has reshaped our multilateral strategy. We'd like you to present it to the State Department's Economic Diplomacy Task Force. No fanfare. No spotlight. Just a calm request, and behind it, the weight of generations. I didn't wear a new suit. I wore the same navy one from Tokyo. A reminder that my power didn't come from fabric. It came from history. From memory. From grit. The briefing room was stark. High ceilings. Polished tables. But the moment I started speaking, I felt it shift. I walked them through how I'd navigated culture, language, and fear, not just policy. I showed them not just how we saved the Cairo deal, but why it nearly collapsed, because the system still assumes every deal is about numbers. But sometimes, it's about being seen. Halfway through the session, a young diplomat raised her hand. Who taught you to think like this? I looked straight at her. I wasn't taught. I was dismissed. That's where the real learning happened. After the briefing, one of the advisors, a sharp, older woman in gray glasses, caught me in the hallway. You know they're talking about a possible federal advisory position, she said softly. I blinked. For me? She smiled. Not officially. But yes. I nodded. But inside, I didn't feel pride. I felt the weight of responsibility. Because I knew what would come with it. 3 weeks later, the backlash arrived. A conservative columnist wrote an op-ed titled, Tokenism in Ties, How DEI is Undermining America's Negotiating Power. He didn't use my name, but the references were obvious. She didn't earn it. She plays the race card. She's emotion wrapped in credentials. It spread like wildfire. TV panels. Podcasts. Tweets. Suddenly, I wasn't the strategist, I was the symbol. And symbols make easy targets. The emails returned. You're a puppet. Don't embarrass us in front of real diplomats. Enjoy your little promotion. It won't last. But they didn't know what I'd already survived. They didn't know I was once the girl who had to bring her own chair to meetings. That I'd spent years learning to shrink so others could breathe easier. That I used to pray just to be tolerated. Not anymore. That Friday, I called a company-wide town hall. Wilson backed me. HR warned me to tread carefully. But I knew what I had to do. When I stepped on stage, the room fell quiet. I've heard the whispers, I began. They say I don't belong here. That I'm here to check a box. That I got lucky. I paused. But luck didn't sit through night classes. Luck didn't translate treaties by candlelight. Luck didn't dodge sabotage, fake accusations, and forged resumes. Luck didn't save Cairo, Tokyo, or New York. I took a breath. I earned this. And the only reason it feels unusual is because the rooms were never built for people like me. So I'm not apologizing for being here. I'm staying. And I'm opening the door wider. Silence. Then, a single clap. Then more. Then the room erupted. Not for a title. For a truth too long buried. That night, I received a message from someone I hadn't spoken to in a decade. My first professor at Georgetown. The one who told me, you're too sensitive for this field. His message read, I was wrong. You were never too much. The world just wasn't enough yet. After the town hall, everything changed. Overnight, I became a headline. VP Jasmine Bennett delivers viral speech on race, power, and resilience. She's not just at the table, she's rewriting it. The future of diplomacy looks like this. For every hateful email, there were 10 from girls, mothers, students, some from countries I'd never set foot in. You made me believe I could be something more. Now I understand why my voice matters. I've never seen someone who looks like me say what I've always wanted to say. But with the attention came new pressure. In the following weeks, I was asked to lead a task force for international equitable policy development. Wilson warned me, it's high stakes. You'll be outnumbered. Possibly undermined. I've been outnumbered my whole life, I said. But I've never been outworked. Still, I didn't expect the storm inside the committee room. 7 executives. 6 men. All white. 1 woman, me. They smiled through clenched teeth. Corrected my grammar. Interrupted my data. One of them, Langley, the oldest, said, Look, Jasmine, we admire your passion. But diplomacy isn't activism. It's calculus. I smiled. Then I suggest you stop miscounting whose voices are in the equation. After the second session, one of the younger analysts slipped me a USB drive. They've been rewriting your proposal documents, he whispered. Twisting the framing to make it look combative. I nodded. Keep this between us, I said. He hesitated. You know they'll try to turn this against you. Let them. Because the more they twisted, the more obvious it became what they feared, not my failure. My influence. The final vote on my proposal was scheduled for Monday. Over the weekend, anonymous leaks appeared in internal Slack channels. She wants to dismantle legacy partnerships. She called Germany's investment terms colonial. She threatened to resign unless she got her way. All lies. But sticky ones. Wilson called me Sunday night. Want me to intervene? No, I said. I'll handle it. He paused. You sure? I looked out my window, at the skyline I'd once stared at from a subway car, dreaming of exactly this seat. I'm more than sure. Monday came. I walked into that boardroom knowing half of them thought I didn't belong. I let them speak first. I let them twist. Then I stood up. You've misquoted me. Misrepresented me. And misunderstood me. And I'm not surprised. A hush fell. I was never supposed to be in this room. Not by your standards. But I'm here. Not to dismantle partnerships, but to protect those we've never made space for. You say diplomacy is calculus. Then count the nations we've ignored. Count the women who never made it past reception. Count the cost of silence. I laid the original document, my version, on the table. This is the policy I stand by. You can vote it down. But you can't erase what's already been witnessed by hundreds around the world. The vote passed. 5-2. Not unanimous. But history doesn't require consensus to begin, it only needs courage. That night, I walked home without checking my phone. No articles. No emails. No praise. Just quiet steps on concrete. Because winning isn't always fireworks. Sometimes it's just survival. But that's enough. 2 weeks after the policy passed, I found myself staring out the window of my office at 7 p.m., the city lights flickering like questions waiting for answers. Everyone called it a win. But it didn't feel like one. Yes, the policy was now active. Yes, I'd become the youngest VP to lead an international equity directive. But the leaks hadn't stopped. The whispers hadn't stopped. The resistance had just gone underground. One morning, I walked into a meeting and found someone had drawn a tiny line of ink under my name on the welcome screen. A dash. A signal. Subtract her. Petty, but pointed. That week, I was invited to speak at the Global Women in Strategy Summit in Berlin. Keynote speaker. International stage. Full circle moment. But I almost said no. Because I was tired of telling the story of how I got here. I wanted to start talking about what came next. In Berlin, the hall was packed. Hundreds of women from every corner of the world. The air buzzed with hope. I stood under a soft blue spotlight and took a breath. I don't want to talk about survival tonight, I began. I want to talk about building. Silence fell, tight, electric. Every time a woman of color succeeds, the story becomes about how she beat the odds. But success isn't the destination. It's the foundation. What we do after they let us in is what truly reshapes the world. I paused. I am no longer interested in being the only one in the room. I want to be the first of many. And for that, I'm building something new. That was the first time I said it out loud, the initiative. A full-scale mentorship, scholarship, and global policy pipeline for underrepresented women in diplomacy, strategy, and trade. Backed by my own money. By Wilson's support. by silent allies I'd gathered in every boardroom I'd ever walked into. I wasn't just going to change the company anymore. I was going to change the game. When I returned to New York, HR called me in. Apparently, there was concern that I was using corporate visibility to further personal ambitions. I laughed. Right there in the chair. You're absolutely right, I said. My ambition is personal. And if your concern is that too many young women are watching me and thinking they can follow, then you're too late. Wilson pulled me aside after the meeting. They won't fire you, he said. But they may try to silence you. I nodded. Let them try. He smiled. You remind me of someone I used to be. That Friday, I launched the initiative publicly. A press release. A short film. And a message: we've waited long enough to be seen. Now we're stepping into the light, and we're bringing thousands with us. The company didn't comment. But they didn't stop me either. And that told me everything. 1 year after I stepped in front of the Sheikh. 10 months after I rewrote the Tokyo deal. 6 months after I launched the initiative. I stood in front of a room full of young women, some just out of college, others already shaping trade offices from Lagos to Sao Paulo. They were the first cohort of the Bennett initiative. One of them asked me, "How do you stay calm when they doubt you?" I smiled. I don't. I just don't let the doubt make decisions for me. They laughed. Not because it was funny, but because they understood. Every woman in that room had been told they were too loud, too quiet, too emotional, too ambitious. And now? They were being told, "You're enough." Because I knew the truth, you don't just open the door once. You hold it open, until someone stronger than you walks through and builds something you never could have imagined. Later that night, I sat alone in my office, the view of Manhattan a little less intimidating now. I thought about the old versions of me, the girl in the linen blouse and flats who handed out printouts at meetings. The one who once cried in a bathroom stall after being called, well, spoken, like it was a surprise. The woman who dared to speak Arabic in a room full of powerful men. The leader who called out sabotage in plain daylight. And now, this version. Not perfect. Not finished. But free. There were still battles. Still backroom politics. Still names whispered behind mine in every elevator. But I wasn't alone anymore. Because behind me now, were hundreds. And behind them? Thousands. 1 month later, Wilson announced his retirement. I was offered the Chief Global Strategy Officer role. I accepted. But only on one condition: my successor won't look like me either. She'll be nothing like me. But she'll have the fire. Let's stop hiring mirrors and start hiring vision. They agreed. Some reluctantly. Some enthusiastically. But all of them, silently, understood. The final scene? I walked past the reception desk where I once sat, years ago, invisible. This time, a new assistant sat there. Young. Wide-eyed. Braids down her back. And a notebook full of dreams. She stood as I approached, nervous. "Ms. Bennett," she said. "I just wanted to say, thank you. You make me feel like I belong here." I paused. Smiled. Then I handed her a small, embossed card. My personal line. Not filtered. Not formal. If anyone ever makes you question that, call me. She stared at the card like it was gold. But it wasn't gold. It was a reminder. That she never had to fight the way I did. Not anymore.